080811212 or visit.
It's what I do with my time and my mind, and it's time to remind.
شاربنا على ذكري حبيبي مدامة ساكرنا بها من قبل لأن يخلق الكرم لها البدر كأس يا شمس يديرها هلال وكم يبدو إذا مزجت مولانا يا مولانا مولانا يا مولانا مولانا يا مولانا مولانا يا مولانا 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 يا مولانا 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 يا ولولا شذاها ما اهتديت لحالها ولولا سناها ما تصورها الوهم ما لم يبق منها الدار غير حشاشة كأن خفها في صدور النهى كتم مولانا يا مولانا مولانا يا مولانا مولانا يا مولانا مولانا يا مولانا 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 يا مولانا 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 يا مولانا.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وفي سكرة منها ولو عمر ساعتي ترى الدهر أبدا.
Right about now, you're tuned into Ramadan FM 2018.
لمن عاش صاحيا ومن لم يمت.
If you're listening to us through our website, don't forget you can jump onto Facebook Live or YouTube Live. I hope all my brothers and sisters out there are having another spiritual blessed day of Ramadan fasting. And I hope everyone's trying their best to get connected to the Almighty Allah Azza wa Jal. And I hope everyone's trying to recite as plenty of salawat upon the beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. I'm your host of today's Drive Time Special, Ish Sethi. And joining me in the studio today are three very esteemed and highly respected individuals. They have been called upon to share their experience and their expertise on the topic of today, which is the role of the British Mosque. Before I introduce my guests, I want you to just watch this.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Muhammad Habib Rahman. I am the chairman of the
The 5 daily prayers and the Jummah?
Is it just a place for holding gatherings and events?
Or is it just a place to teach the children how to recite the Quran?
What should the role of women be in mosque committees?
What about sports, martial arts and boxing? Should this be part of the mosque activities?
How about healthcare facilities? Is this also something the mosque should be providing?
To discuss these issues, join us on the role of the British Mosque at Drive Time with Ish.
That's Wednesday, the 23rd of May from 5 to 7.
Exclusively on Ramadan FM 2018.
Ramadan FM 2018.
The voice of British Muslims.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. You're tuned in to Ramadan FM 2018. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله وعلى آلك وأصحابك يا سيدي يا حبيب الله. It was 14 centuries ago when mankind was lost, when people were living a life of ignorance, when there was no rule of law, there was no system of justice. People would bury their daughters alive. People would prostrate before idols. Some worshipped the sun, some worshipped the moon, some worshipped the trees, some worshipped animals. The Kaaba itself housed 360 idols. In this climate, a man named Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came, and he would change the course of history forever. He gave rights to women, he gave rights to orphans, he gave rights to his neighbors, he gave rights to children, he gave rights to animals, he gave rights to plants, and most of all, he taught mankind that there was no one worthy of worship except Allah Azza wa Jal. He told us about that one creator, that there is only one Lord, there is only one God. He can't be heard, he can't be seen, he can't be touched, he can't be tasted, he can't be smelt, he can't be felt, and in many cases he is beyond our understanding. But he is one, and he is absolute, and he is not begotten, or he does not beget. He has no partners, he has no brothers, he has no sisters, he has no parents. There is nothing before him, and there will be nothing after him. He was not created, but he created everything. And he told mankind to submit to this one God, to worship him alone, and to stand before him 5 times a day in prayer. The Quran mentions again and again, Aqimus Salah wa Atuz Zakah, that stand before him, prostrate to him. And it is this message which penetrated the hearts of the believers. And wherever the believers went, wherever these believers went, these believers that believed and accepted the message of the beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they established a place of worship. Sajda means to prostrate. The male prostrator is known as Sajid. The female prostrator is known as Sajida. And the place of prostration is known as Masjid. Wherever these Muslims went, they would establish a place of prayer. They would establish a place which would be the masjid. Whether it was the services on highway deserts of Arabia, or whether it was the terminals of the airports, whether it was shopping malls across UK like Westfield, or whether it was the peaks of the mountains, regardless of where it was, wherever the Muslim community would congregate, they would come together and they would establish the place of worship, which was the masjid. Initially in the UK, we saw when our forefathers came, they would allocate a room, and a living room, or maybe the front room of a house, which the community would congregate. As the community grew, they bought the whole house, and that became the masjid. They started to buy the centers. They started to buy the churches. They started to buy the community centers and convert them into the masjid. Today, alhamdulillah, across the UK, there are close to 2,000 mosques in the UK. And these mosques are providing a place for the Muslim community to come and prostrate. However, with so many masajid, with so many mosques across the UK, the functionality of the mosque has also become diverse. The need and the requirements of the Muslim community has now grown, and likewise has the services of the mosques. Initially, a place which just started off as a place of prayer has now become a center which many other needs of the Muslim community are being met. I have with me in the house 3 esteemed individuals who are probably the most best qualified to talk on this subject, as they themselves are in leading positions of running centers. First of all, I have with me Brother Habibur Rahman, who is the chairman of the iconic and the largest mosque in the whole of East London, probably in the whole of London if I'm not mistaken, but I'm sure Brother Habibur Rahman will elaborate on this further. I have with me Brother Ashfaq Siddiq, who is the chairman, the secretary of a mosque which I often refer to as my mosque, because this is the masjid in which I started off and got involved in Islamic activism. And I have with me the president of Minhajul Quran International, a global organization which spans across 80 countries, and in the UK has over 20 centers and over 30 organizational setups. Minhajul Quran International President, Minhajul Quran International London President, Brother Khurram Shahzad. So, first of all, Assalamu alaikum to you guys. I hope you've been enjoying Ramadan, and I thank you from the depth of my heart for attending this show today. And inshallah, Jazakallah khair. So, I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to go straight into a few of the points which I want to basically bring into the discussion, and I want to start with yourself, Brother Habibur Rahman. In the opening introduction, I mentioned about when the Muslim community came to the UK. You know, they established houses, and that is where they were being prayed. And I know East London Mosque, which has a history which spans over 100 years. You just talk us about how it started off from a house which was rented to this huge, mashallah, building which we've got now, and the whole Muslim ummah in the UK is benefiting from.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Jazakumullah khair, Brother Ismail, for this invitation to be here with you today. And Ramadan Kareem to all of your listeners. East London Mosque, as you say, has a rich history that spans over 100 years. In fact, it was in 1910 when the London Mosque Fund was established. At that time, there was no indication of a mosque, but Muslims at that time, in particular Justice Saeed Amir Ali, who was heading that initiative, they came up with the idea that they wanted to set up a fund which would eventually convert into a masjid in London, inshallah, for the small Muslim community at the time. Over time, alhamdulillah, a lot of very prominent people got involved with that project, and looking at the kind of archives and the history of the people who are involved with the mosque or with the fund and the development of it. You know, people like Abdullah Yusuf Ali and Mahmoud Pickthall, also some non-Muslims, funny enough, were involved with it in the early stages of the development of this fund. But it was in the 40s, in 1941, when 3 houses were actually built.
Yeah, that's right.
It was purchased in Commercial Road. Prior to that, you know, these brothers and the community were actually hiring halls in different places, and they're doing their Jummah prayers and their daily prayers in little halls. So Commercial Road, there were 3 buildings that were purchased, and the community, a lot of the people who actually came over, and there were people who were in the, on ships. They used to work in ships and so on.
On the docks,
on the docks, that's right. And that's how the community kind of grew, and they were utilizing that space.
Yeah.
But subsequent to that, in 1975, through the GOC, they actually moved the location from those 3 buildings into the current site.
Yeah.
And alhamdulillah, it was in 1985 when the purpose-built mosque was opened with the capacity of about 2,000 or so people are able to pray. So, in a nutshell, alhamdulillah, you know, we see that a lot of places throughout the country, alhamdulillah, Muslim community have actually taken the initiative to establish a place for prayer.
Yeah.
Whether it be a house or shop floor on top of a business or whatever, these things have happened. But alhamdulillah, also we are seeing more and more purpose-built mosques around the country. Alhamdulillah.
Ash, I want to bring you into the discussion. Obviously, as secretary of Al Madina Mosque in Barking, which is a centre which is providing phenomenal services, multiple services to the entire community. I remember it was in the early 90s that place was completed, wasn't it?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum. Firstly, I just want to say you said there were 3 esteemed people here. I see 2 to my right. I don't know where the third one is. I think I'm making up the numbers. So.
No, you're esteemed in my eyes and in the eyes of our viewers, I'm sure.
But alhamdulillah, yes, Al Madina Masjid Barking we started on the ground there in '86, and at the time it was just a swamp. So you wouldn't recognise it. It was trees and rivers, and it was a swamp. And actually, it was a wasteland, which at the time the local authority sort of pushed towards the Muslim community and said, here's a bit of land, you got 12 months to build on it, and if you don't build on it, don't come back to us again and say that we didn't support you. So that was the climate that we were in at the time. There was a lot of far right activity at the time.
Yeah.
So it was a difficult time for Muslims, and as my colleagues have said, we were making do with houses which were just not fit for purpose, and we were renting churches and halls and stuff like that. So alhamdulillah, it's interesting to hear the chairman of the Muslim Centre saying in 1985.
Yeah,
because we alhamdulillah started in '86, so our journey times wise has been about the same, alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. And Khurram, this place, again, like we said, the Muslim community, they came and they were buying out churches, they were buying out synagogues. My father's the chairman of a mosque which was originally a synagogue in Canning Town. Cinemas. Talk to me, Khurram.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, Ramadan Mubarak to everybody listening and the panelists here as well. Thanks very much for inviting me here. Alhamdulillah, the centre here, it's a much younger organisation and set up to the East London Mosque. But alhamdulillah, initially it used to be a cinema first of all. And then I think there was a need here in the community for a mosque to be established in the local vicinity. And a few people got together under the leadership of Haji Yunus Sab, who used to have a business in Whitechapel.
Sorry, I just want to give a quick shout out to the listeners. We're not going to be taking calls for the first hour of the show. So for the first hour of the show, we're just going to basically give the whole discussion some direction. So please, guys, if you can avoid calling the studio. And the next hour, we're going to open it up to our listeners as well. So any questions you've got for the panelists, you'll be more than welcome to call in and ask. But go ahead, carry on.
So initially it was an Odeon cinema. And then alhamdulillah, the brothers got together and the sisters and the families. And mashallah, were able to purchase this building at that time. And I think it was the 4 people that got together and actually took mortgages out or arranged the funding to buy this place. And that's where the whole story started from. And alhamdulillah, today you see a centre here.
Alhamdulillah. So I mean that's enough about history. I don't want to make this too much of a history lesson. I want to talk about the role now, the British Mosque. So Brother Ashfaq, you from your position, what are the main needs, what you say, that the Muslim community requires right now, that do you think that the mosque should be provided? Because there should be an element. I mean, the mosque is not here to basically cater for everything and anything, and that's what we're going to discuss. Where is that line? Some people say the mosque should be providing pretty much everything, and some people say, no, hold on a second, that's not the purpose of the masjid. The purpose of the masjid is X, Y, and Z. What do you see the needs of the community, and how far do you think that the mosque should be going to provide those, can cater for those needs?
I think that's a complicated question, but I think we're in a transient period, to be honest with you. I think the role of the mosque has moved forward so much, but I do think that some of mosque managements up and down the country, and some of the people who have an influence over the direction of mosques and Islamic institutions haven't yet caught up. You know, some institutions are way ahead. You know, yours here, Minhajul Quran, the East London Mosque, are way ahead in providing the needs of the community. Some institutions who could be doing much better haven't really yet understood what the needs of the community are, let alone what the role of the mosque is. My personal view is that the mosque, you know, when you look at Islamic communities in Islamic history, around every Muslim community is based around a masjid. And, you know, so that tells us that that's the center of the community. There is an expectation, I think, that the mosque deals with everything. Yeah, just as there used to be an expectation that the one imam can deal with everything. He can lead the prayer, he can go and do the ruqyah, he can go and counsel, he can go and meet the ill and what have you. And we were expecting too much of people. But I think what's happening gradually, and I think it needs to happen more aggressively, is that we need to identify that we need to move outside the four walls of the mosque and actually reach out to the communities and actually touch them where their needs are. Okay, and for me personally, that means that we have to sometimes address some of the taboo issues within our communities. I think that one of the reasons the Muslim communities find themselves where they are today, certainly in relation to some of our youth and some of the social problems that we're experiencing, is because historically, either because we weren't geared up to deal with it, or because we wanted to literally stick our head in the sand and say this doesn't happen in Muslim communities, we ignored some of the social ills that we experienced. And when you experience trauma, that has to come out somewhere. And many generations later, we find that, you know, we've got youngsters now who are experiencing all sorts of trauma. So I think, you know, just to summarize there, is that we need to identify people amongst us who are not only just pious and want to help their communities, but also who are skilled enough to help those institutions move forward.
I mean, guys, also please feel free to crosstalk. Okay. Let's basically, you know, relax a bit and have a kind of a more of a informal discussion rather than too much me asking questions and you guys giving answers. So I mean, picking up from what Ash said, I mean, I'm sure you guys will have something to say, because I can see that, you know, that a lot of the institutes, some of them like multi-million-pound complexes, you know, but you see the actual activities that are going on there, they are, you know, they're basically, they're quite, I want to choose my words carefully here because I don't want to offend anyone, but, you know, they are, let's just say they're inadequate, or they're not catering properly for those needs because of issues. I mean, what issues would they be? What would you have to say?
Well, I mean, what I would say to that is, it's a very interesting question actually that you asked, because I remember we in Minhajul Quran we have a change in structure every 2 years, and I remember when we started this tenure, we sat down. There was a conference, Al Hidayah, where we sat down, a few brothers and sisters, where we went through what do we want, you know, the centre to be providing. We basically highlighted 3 different areas what we thought, you know, the mosque or the centre needs to provide for the community, and they were basically divided into 3 areas. One was in terms of educational activities, which we thought, you know, the mosque should provide. So whether it be children's education, young people's education, our elder generation's education in Urdu and in English. The other was in terms of spiritual activities, your regular prayers, Jummahs, you know, Shab-e Barat, etc., etc. And thirdly, which we wanted to concentrate a little bit more on, which we felt in the team that we were discussing, where we felt there was a bit of an element of weakness, was community services. So some of the issues we identified within that was women and sisters getting involved in terms of the mosque, because there was a feeling that the mosques basically become a prayer club for men. So whether it be women empowerment, whether it be we see our young people going towards extremist sensitivities, so whether it be totally towards secular side or totally towards extremist sides. So that needed to be addressed. Then thirdly was in terms of community services to help our local people, whether it be Muslims, non-Muslims, and people that whether they attend the centre or they don't. How can we cater for that? So some of the initiatives which we thought we would try to put in place, like to address the extremism side, we introduced a curriculum called PEP, which is formulated by Dr. Tariq Qadri Saab, which is a peace education program which caters for people of different ages. So there's a whole syllabus of 11 books which we start from an early age at the centre. So when a child actually registered from the age of 5, obviously at his level it gets taught throughout the years. Then in terms of women empowerment, what we tried to do was, in our executive committee, we've got organisation, the Minhaj Women League, Minhaj Sisters as well. They've actually got positions in the main executive body, so the women have a voice as well, and the sisters have a voice, so they can actually contribute towards the decision making process. And thirdly, I would like to say is that in terms of the community services, there were a number of projects which we thought we would cater for the community. I don't know if you want me to elaborate on that or another.
I think we're going to come back to actually what the services that your centres are providing. I want to.
Can I just come in there?
Yeah.
Because I think it's a really important point what Khurram says. But I think, and I'm going to say something controversial here, all right, is that I think we need to skip a generation, all right? And what I mean by that is this. Look, we Muslims sometimes are reactionary, all right? So we are told, you don't provide prayer spaces for your women, all right? So we focus ourselves on providing prayer spaces for women. We are told that, your children are heading towards extremism, all right? So we react to that and then start teaching our children, this is what extremism is, this is what... You know what? Islam is such a beautiful and enriched, whole, holistic idea, right? That unfortunately our mindsets have become used to the fact that we are, in a way, and I'm going to use the word, we're pleasing other people. All right. If we actually looked at what Islam offers, right, we contribute to the fabric of society, right, in such a positive way. But we're beginning to have this mindset to say we need to be accepted by everybody. We should be leading the way. Islamic history is littered by people who have led the way and have changed the world, right, by basically being Muslims, right? And I think we need to go back, and that's why I say we need to skip a generation, right? We need to stop this trying to please everybody, and we need to understand what Islam is and be Muslims, right? And that itself will speak a volume for what.
I think that's quite correct. But sometimes you're forced into those situations. So I think. Situations arise whereby a certain problem may not have been there before, but it's come about and you can't ignore it, and therefore it seems as if though you are trying to react and please others, but in essence you would have been doing that in the first place anyway. And I think it's really important. Like you said in your introduction, masjid is primarily a place of sajda.
Yeah.
And this is where you come to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
But mosque has evolved so much. And even if you go back to the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when the mosque was established, then it had a very holistic role within the whole society.
That's right.
And it wasn't just for prayers, but it was for all kinds of other services to the community. And I think it's important for masjids to respond to the need of the community. And I think what Brother Ashfaq says is very, very important, that, oftentimes we can be very complacent and think that, we are providing everything when you may be providing something to just a generation of people or a kind of, a part of the community, when a whole other aspect of the community has very little to do with your masjid and your center and the services that you're providing, so on. So we have to be careful about that as well. And also I think it's important that, not try to do everything in-house, because a lot of the time you have to reach out and do certain things, But some of the times, we've established schools in our center, and masjid is, again, it's not masjid anymore; it's masjid and center because of all the other services that you're trying to provide. But you may not be best suited to deliver something from the masjid environment or the structure that you have that can be best served from somewhere else. And schools are a wonderful example of that. We've tried that. It's being done at the moment because there is a need for it. But as soon as you possibly can, that needs to be taken out and properly provided for the whole community and for the service of the community.
Exactly, and we see a lot of that happening, don't we? We see a lot of things actually starting off within the setup of the mosque and then reaching a level where then it can be taken out and taken to a proper premises which is specifically designed. So it's the masjid becomes that fountain, that place where the light is actually emanating from, illuminating the entire community.
Plus, the only other thing could add to that is, I think also there's two roles whether it's be an organization or anything, there's always two roles and two things I think we've got to be conscious of. One thing is there's a firefighting element going on where the day-to-day problems or issues that arise, like brother mentioned, that you deal with. Yeah, so whether it be, like I mentioned, terrorism or whatever it be, women empowerment, whatever, there's certain issues, for example, which you've got to address there and then, which is from maybe in the next 3 months, 6 months to a year. And then there's a long-term planning, for example, which I think brother mentioned also. So I think you can't leave one and just focus on one. I think you've got to take both together.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right, Harun. But I think one of the things that we need to be careful of is that we need to remain focused on what the end goal is and not be hijacked and diverted continuously. And I think what the brother's saying there is that we've got some skilled people in our communities. Yeah, and I tell you what, they are really visionary. They're blue sky thinkers. But a lot of the time they're not in the masjid, right? They're not associated to the masjid. And one of the things I've certainly found is that we need to reach out to those people. Right, you need to lower yourself. I mean, I'd use that word. So, I mean, you need to get away from this thought process that I'm the masjid. Okay, you're going to come to me. If we've got skilled people out there, let's reach out to them, right? Let's get them involved by saying to them, listen, you don't want to become involved in the management of the masjid, but you do this project for me, and then you can disappear. And I promise you from my experience, right, once they become involved once, they ain't going anywhere, all right, because they get that bug, right? They see the benefit. But one of the things is our mindset has got to change. There's people out there, Muslims, you look at this country, you look at the fabric of the NHS, you look at the transport for London, you look at all of some of the big industries in this company, Muslims are driving them. Yeah. Right? And we got some talent out there. What we've got to learn to do is to reach out to that talent and make it more involved.
But you're right also that, it goes back to the teaching of Islam. Because, as Muslims, if we understood what we're about and what our responsibilities are and what our position is with regards to the masjid and our relationship with the masjid, a lot of these things would not arise. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would people, as Muslims, we are the hadith says that our heart should be attached to the mosque, and that means we are looking forward to going back to the mosque again and again. That's not just for those elderly people who come to the mosque; it's for the whole of the community. And therefore, the Muslim community was so, as you said, the center of the community is the masjid, and everybody's kind of connected to that. So if you remember when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to not see somebody in the masjid, and there's so much encouragement being given for going to the masjid and offering your prayer in jama'ah as opposed to doing it alone and so on and so forth. So whenever he didn't see anybody in the masjid, he would ask about that person. And if he knew that person was not well, he would go and visit that person. So that connectivity has to be really there. Not everybody's going to come to the masjid. But if they don't, we also need to be connected to them and see. We have to go out and see them.
Can I just ask everyone, please speak in the mics, because I got a message saying that. Go on, carry on.
Just that a little bit there as well. This we sometimes in all communities get too hung up on, look, there's a child running around and I'm reading my salah and he's making noise. Let that child run around.
Absolutely.
Let him make the noise. Our Prophet used to jump onto his shoulders. We need to get away from this has to be such a controlled, overbearing environment. One of the reasons I do some of the stuff that I do at the masjid is because when I was a kid, it wasn't a place of fun. I used to go, my father used to say to me, come on son, we're going to the masjid, and I used to go by protestation.
Ash, tell us, were you ever made to be the murgi, bro?
I just want to say to my father, I love you for doing it, Dad. But what I'm saying is that today these places should be places that our children want to run to. They want to associate themselves to. They want to say, I'm going to the masjid because I have fun there. Because once you make it fun for them, right, everything else will follow. But if they don't want to even step foot in there in the first place, then we really have fun.
Ash, there's two things that you mentioned there which I want to basically get these gentlemen's input on. Is you mentioned the word fun, which I want to come to, but you also mentioned the word project. Okay, and that basically comes out to me like, wow, project. Because yes, originally masjid was a place of just prostration, but if you look, like Brother Habibur Rahman mentioned, during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the masjid was a learning center. It was a center where the women would come, where children would come. It would basically be a community hub. People would come and discuss. They would do their planning, strategic planning. Their planning of their battles would go on in the masjid. The planning of, there's actually a chapter in Bukhari called "Playing in the Mosque." This is amazing. What the mosque was and what the Prophet ﷺ's ideal, what masjid was, Masjid al-Nabawi, where the deen, where the nur came from, where the light spread from. This was something else, and we are basically originally when we came, yes, it was just a place of prayer, but now because we're established, I think we need to go back to that model which the Prophet ﷺ brought and implement that within. So talk to me, Habibur Rahman, about projects. I'm talking about what kind of projects should the mosque be providing?
It's a shame that, knowing the history that we do know and knowing the example of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his masjid in those early years, that, we tend to go back and we go a few steps back and become restrictive about the masjid and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
It's usually problematic. And like the brother said, if people come to the masjid, they want to get an experience and they want to feel that I want to come back to this place. Right? There is this sense, particularly for young people, they want to feel that this is, they're welcome in the masjid. Even if they make mistakes, they're not just pulled up about the mistakes, but they're nicely told, this is how you correct yourself and so on. But they feel they've learned something, but they feel valued. They feel that they're welcome and should be accessible to everybody. I mean, the masjid for the Prophet ﷺ was also a place of celebration. Weddings were announced in the masjid and they were celebrated in the masjid. We see Aisha radiallahu anha, witnessing the Abyssinians playing with their arrows and having fun in the masjid. So many different kinds of projects that can be done, which is associated with the masjid. Some of it can be done in-house, some of it can be done outside of the house. But if we are able to arrange, a day, an open day, for example, for the family, even, or young people, and we are able to give them some recreational activities. They know that these are things which are allowed in the masjid. You don't have to go to the fun fair for these kind of things. But there are also other kinds of projects that you can do that is healthy for people. It's enjoyable for people. It's beneficial for the community. I mean, one of the projects we did, which was a response to the need of our community, particularly with regards to education. It was improving school attendance in partnership with schools.
Right.
And the mosque got involved in that. So we came up with the project with the local authority as well, because we realized that a lot of the Muslim, particularly Muslim students or kids, were actually missing school a lot.
Was it truancy?
Truancy. Yeah. And, for basic reasons, or even, having long-term holidays without paying any due care to it and so on. So we realized that, this is affecting their progress and their education, and also at the end of the day, it's not a good thing for them. So we came up with a project that we worked in partnership with other people, and from an Islamic perspective, we were able to put both to the parents and also to the children and the schools the value of education and how Islam gave education and how Islam encourages it so much and so forth. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, his masjid was also used not just for reading of the Quran, but also literacy and for people for other kinds of education as well. So projects like that actually help the community a great deal, and we saw a lot of success through that project. But other kind of projects can be utilized, like the project we had about your center here, Dawah project, for example. This is a wonderful thing. There's a responsibility of the Muslims as well. We are responsible for calling people to Islam.
That's right.
And what better way to spend your time than to be able to distribute the word of Allah, Quran, to other people, and to organize other things. I mean, we do open days in the masjid. SubhanAllah, a lot of non-Muslims feel they're not allowed to come into the masjid when it's open to everybody. And non-Muslims used to come to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Delegations used to come, and he used to tell them about Islam, and they used to embrace Islam through that as well. So there are many projects that we need to do and must do in the masjid.
That's right. Khurram, I mean, there's a lot of projects that the brother Habib Rahman just mentioned, and in terms of basically doing dawah. See, I can remember when I was a kid, my parents were like, when they originally came, they came here to earn a bit of money and go back. That was always the intention. It was never to basically stay here.
That's right.
But it's one of those things. They came here, everybody basically started earning money. There was a better life here. Then the children were born here. The women started coming over, and before you knew it, you had an entire community and everything was basically being provided. The masajid were there. But one thing was, a worry was from those parents, from our elder generation, that they might lose their deen. They may lose their identity, their Islamic identity, because they may assimilate with Western culture, Western values, etc. But then there's also the flip side of the coin, that you could still hold firm to your deen and integrate within society and be true to your Islamic values and your British values as well, because they're not actually contradictory to each other. But at the same time, what you can do is not lose your deen, but actually give people your deen. It's a dawah opportunity. We're like, 2%, 3% that make up the UK's population? That's 97% of the UK's population that need to hear this message of Islam. And the companions, they did it. When they went out and conquered the entire world, that's what happened. Mass migration, companions went out, people converted to Islam, not by the sword, but by the beauty of Islam and the role of the masjid. Surely what you're saying, these open days, Khurram, enlighten me. What do you have to say about doing dawah, not by saying there's one God and worship and just basically the rhetoric, but actually being that not by
driving force.
Exactly, not by talking about Islam, but by showing Islam.
Well, alhamdulillah, I think like the brothers have just mentioned, totally agree with that. What we believe is that the mosque should be the hub of the activity. Like the brother mentioned, I think delegations used to come to Masjid al-Nabawi Sharif when they used to come from other countries and other places. Some of the things what we are doing here in the centre, we believe that in that firmly. A project which we started probably about a year and a half ago was English learning. Basically English ESOL, English learning as a foreign language, and secondly basic mathematics learning as well. So we actually started those classes which we're running 4 days a week, Monday to Thursday, for 10 to 12 every day. And on that, alhamdulillah, we've actually had nearly 60 to 70 non-Muslims come as well. So that's an opportunity for us people being in a non-Muslim country to obviously let people come and
the
give them the
70
opportunity.
people are coming to the masjid
Every day, alhamdulillah.
to learn to learn English
to
or
learn
maths.
English and maths, alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's a win-win, because there's an opportunity for them once they come into the masjid to learn about the Muslims, see that we're not all so-called terrorists, or we don't all have this negative mentality.
We're not going to get them in and blow them up.
And the other thing is also it's a service that the centre is providing for the local community, that people who attend, Muslims and non-Muslims both alike, both are welcome. They can come and learn English and also learn maths, along a number of other initiatives which we've started. We've started the Minhaj Healthcare Project, where alhamdulillah we've got a team of young brothers and sisters who are doctors, optometrists and people like that, who after Jummah session offer their services for free, normally once a month, where people, if they want to come and get checkups done, they can book themselves in with them and actually have a free checkup. So what we believe is that the mosque should be the hub of activity. We don't want it to be just a place just where people come and pray. If we want to be relevant in the 21st century, alhamdulillah, Muslims hold the deen very, very dear to their hearts. But I think if we want to stay relevant and we want to be active in people's lives, the mosque needs to broaden what it offers for the benefit of the community. And
that's what Ash, you were saying, isn't it? You were talking about skill set. Yeah. People have got skill set. The health centre that you're talking about, you've taken on doctors, that's their profession, and you've brought that into the mosque, within the mosque environment.
Fantastic,
so
fantastic.
This is.
But what Khurram says is really important, and it's fantastic what you're doing. But what I want to say is, one of the words you used there, Khurram, was if you want to remain relevant. Okay, that for me is really important. Look, 2 to 3% of the population of this country is Muslim. 25% of the prison population of this country is Muslim. 1 in 4 prisoners in the United Kingdom is a Muslim. Something has gone wrong in our communities. We have failed somewhere that nearly 8 times anybody else, we are going to prison, right? Something's gone wrong. You know, and the projects that we have to deal with have to be cutting edge and they have to be hardcore. I agree with everything my colleagues say. These projects that we're doing are very important. You have to move along, you have to educate everything. But look, I'm doing a project at the moment. I'll just give you an example. I meet, and I have met for the last 4 months, 22 Muslim drug dealers from the East End of London. Okay, I meet them once a week. Okay, I meet them in an environment which is away from the mosque. Okay, and in the last 4 months, 6 of them have given up their drugs lifestyle. All right, and I'm not talking about users. I'm talking about dealers. Okay, these are dealers of drugs who deal death and destruction to our children. Okay, 6 of them have given it up, and I'll tell you why they've given it up, Ish, because we have bothered and gone to the extent of reaching out to them. Some of these youngsters, some of these people do not want to be drug dealers. They don't know anything else. You know? Look, one of those individuals said to me, he said, Ash, I'm paying for my sister's education at university. Right, she's the only one in 5 generations in this country who's managed to get to university. All right, once I've paid her fees, I'm going to stop drug dealing. Okay, to be honest with you, how do you answer that?
Yeah.
How do you answer that? It's a really difficult one to answer. Of course it's wrong, all right? But actually, where's he coming from?
Exactly.
He doesn't know any other way.
That's his means, isn't it?
So this is where we have to reach out to these people and say to them, listen, we're on your side. Yes, you may have gone to prison. Yes, you may be a drug dealer. Yes, you may not come into the masjid, all right? But actually, if we don't reach out to these people, who's going to reach out to them? I'll tell you who's going to reach out. They're vulnerable people. I'm not saying what they're doing is right. It's completely wrong.
Of course,
But they're vulnerable people. That if the Muslim community does not put an arm around these people and say, listen, we want to help you, who's going to do it?
That's
right. And I'll tell you the benefits of it. 3-4 months down the line, 6 of them are off the drugs. Okay, they're not selling anymore, and we've managed to get them into employment where they're holding down jobs and earning money. Okay, out of the remainder, I'm pretty hopeful 5 or 6 will come off, right? But I'm telling you, 10 or 11 will never come off that game because they're earning too much money, and because the shaitan has got his claws into them. You know, why would you want to go and work in a manual job for 8 hours a day and earn £250 when you can earn £3,000 by standing on a street corner for 3 hours? All right, but I'll tell you what's happening, Ish. They're ringing me on a regular basis and they're saying, Ashfaq, see this kid here? You need to keep an eye on him because he's falling in with the wrong crowd.
Yeah.
All right. So we put.
So they become whistleblowers.
Yeah, but good whistleblowers.
Yeah,
they're helping their community, even within the criminal fraternity. Those who do good to help the children are accepted. But what the point I want to make is that. Yes, we're doing all of these wonderful projects and they need to be, but you know, one of the reasons we've ended up where we are with some of our youngsters is because we've stuck our head in the sand. We need to take our head out of the sand. We need to accept that our children deal alcohol. We need to accept our children deal drugs. We need to accept that our children are engaged in sex outside of marriage. These are horrible subjects to think about. These are horrible taboo subjects. But if community leaders and masajid are not going to deal with these issues, who is?
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to just go on a quick short break, and then I know. Go on. Say your bit.
Just want to add one other thing, that sometimes people think it's very difficult to do this, but actually there's a lot of help out there as well. I mean, just something which we started on Fridays now is working in conjunction with Serco, the Careers Office, and Peabody, the organisation, where they come together and they actually deliver a lot of the services. So what we've got is a platform where people come and we can actually help them get into jobs, whether they've got, like you said, drug issues, whether they've got other problems. If they come here, alhamdulillah, there's other people, organisations, councils and stuff that can help as well. So it's not something, you're not by yourself.
Alhamdulillah. You know what? We're going to go on a short break. Just before we do, I want to quickly remind our listeners and our viewers, Ramadan FM 2018, project of Minhaj Quran International London. Alhamdulillah, we've been awarded a FM license, full-time license. We're going to be going on the FM airwaves soon after Ramadan. Everything is pretty much ready. The business plans have been done. The premises has been acquired. The teams are ready. The experience is there. Everything is there. However, what we do require is your support in purchasing the equipment. The equipment is £50,000. We basically need the equipment straight after Ramadan. The equipment company they want a check of 50,000 so they can come and do their installation. We are using this platform to appeal to you brothers and sisters out there. Please, all the details are on the screen right now. You can call the donation hotline 07840 551 119. We're looking for 500 people to donate £100 each. We are not burdening individuals. We're not saying instead of saying a few people donate a lot, we're saying a lot of people donate a little. So it's £100, a bite-sized donation. But inshallah, we'll be bringing you these services throughout the year. Having the FM license is a massive it was basically almost impossible to get that license. Alhamdulillah, we have been awarded that FM license, but having a license without having the car is pretty much useless. We've got the license, now we basically need that studio. Guys, please don't forget, donate. You can call the studio number as well. All the details are on the screen. You can transfer the money straight into our account. Also, your names are going to be put into a collage which will be made of 500 people, and that will become an art piece within the new studio, just to basically recognize your contribution. Jazakallah khair. We're going on a short break, and inshallah stay tuned for more of this discussion. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Maseratis, Aston Martins, cause you name it, they got it with the best prices in town.
Sorted! Looks like I'm going to this wedding in a Rangy then.
They'll drop off the car and pick you up once you're done. Just give them a ring on 01798 397 916 or visit them online spmhire.com or find them on Instagram.
Looking for meat and groceries? Look no further than Waris Food Store in Walthamstow. Visit the store to view our special Ramadan offers. 420 Hull Street, Walthamstow, E17 9AA. Or for free delivery, call us on 0208 521 0000. We have fresh deliveries of poultry and vegetables every day. Waris Food Store in Walthamstow.
Reliance Solicitors fight to protect your legal rights. Our firm offers a wide range of services including immigration, family law, commercial law, civil litigation, personal injury, landlord and tenant disputes and employment law. Visit us at 602A High Road, 7 Kings, Ilford, IG3 8BU or call 0207 183 5439. Reliance Solicitors, where every client matters.
Britain Solicitors in East Ham, the name you can trust. We provide services in immigration, family law, landlord and tenant matters, commercial leases and civil litigation. We also deal in personal injury claims and road traffic accidents. Call us on 0203 475 7845 or visit us at 62 Barking Road, East Ham, E6 3BP.
Ramadan FM 2018.
The voice of British Muslims.
Atlantic Distributions. Whether it is frozen fish, marinated Lahori masala fish or lamb offals, we have them available at very competitive prices. We are wholesale suppliers to restaurants, butchers and caterers. Visit us at 51 to 53 Upton Lane, London, E7 9PA. Contact us on 07415 474 185.
Usman needs the adhesive to work. If not, his day will be a disaster. So, Usman, if you really need something to bond, grab a tube of CT1 from your local stockist. An incredibly powerful sealant and construction adhesive that's fast, flexible and strong. It can be used anywhere, even underwater. For more info, ct1limited.com or follow us on Facebook or ring us on 0208 555 1448.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Once again, welcome back to this Drive Time special where we're discussing the role of the British Mosque. You are tuned in to Ramadan FM 2018. Before the break, we were discussing how the masjid itself is more and should be more than just a place where people come and pray and just, I think Khurram referred to as a gentleman's prayer club. and we've seen the masjid has become, in many respects, a lot more than that. I want to talk about 2 or 3 things just before we basically open up the lines. I know I'm going to start getting phone calls now. I shouldn't have said that, but okay. One thing, very quickly, the mosque is it's a complex now. It's not just a place of worship. I mean, if you run a restaurant, would you give your restaurant to a volunteer to run? How and why is it that the people that are running the masajid are all on voluntary basis? Isn't it time that the guys who are leading these masajid, we get the best skilled individuals who have a career in entrepreneurship, in business, to run your masjid for you? Isn't it time that we basically started moving towards that direction?
Yes and no. Right, and I'll tell you why.
Pros and cons, go on.
Pros and cons. Look, because we sometimes are critical of our elders. Yeah, and some of the youngsters, they say, oh, the elders don't know and the elders don't know. I'll tell you what, those people put some time in.
Of course,
right, there are 2,900 Muslim institutions in the UK built by the elders.
Yeah.
Okay, and what I say to the youngsters is, listen, you've got these purpose-built centres. Right, your job now is take it to the next step, and when you've taken it to the next step, then come back and tell me you've done what the elders did. Okay, so and the passion and the time and the commitment that goes into running these, it cannot always be purchased by paying somebody a salary. I don't know if my colleagues agree with me, but you have to have a passion for this. You have to be sacrificing your elements of your own life in order to do this properly. So, but I also agree. We need to move away from this completely voluntary thing. All right, because number one, you're not attracting completely the right people, and number two, sometimes you just have to pay for the right services by the right people, and we need to do more of that.
It's a combination of both.
Yeah.
You can't totally eradicate the usefulness of the volunteers. I mean, there's a lot of passion that comes with that, and a lot of commitment, and so on. And certainly, from our experience, we've found that one of the biggest elements or ingredients for success, particularly in fundraising, for example, was through the volunteers. If it wasn't for these volunteers going out doing all kinds of very extraordinary things to raise money, you wouldn't have the whole community with you. I mean, the benefit isn't just raising the money, it's really having the community with you. So I think when we continue to do that, when I started in the East London Mosque myself as a teenager, we started as volunteers, and we used the buckets to go and collect, and we used to do the cleaning, and we used to organize, and so on and so forth. That's really very necessary. I mean, in the whole days it was really necessary as organizing people's shoes more than anything else. So that's absolutely recognized, it's necessary, and jazakumullah khair to everybody who does that, and more people need to do that. But volunteers alone can't do everything. We have a staffing budget of almost £1 million, or still over £1 million, and that's really necessary, because you have to, in order to do the projects, in order to do all the services that you want to do, you have to pay the imams, you have to pay those guys who manage things, those guys who organize things, those guys who plan and do the strategic, and so on and so forth. You have to have the staff and the cleaning staff, and so on and so forth. You need to have the staff working side by side with the volunteers. If you have efficient staffing, and then you have to let them do the operational side of things, and those who manage and can bring in the strategic and the governance side of things as well, and the volunteers can also integrate with all of that. The two combined together works. If you do one or the other, if it's just a paid job, you do what you paid for, right? You don't do the extra hours. Although, alhamdulillah, I think most of our establishments, we have staff who are almost available 24/7. Right. Whenever you need them, you call them. They're always there, and they go above and beyond all the time. So for me, I think you can't do without volunteers, but you also need to have a good staffing base and effective, efficient people to do.
That balance, obviously is very important. The passion comes that's going to be in the volunteers. You may not find that in somebody that's just basically doing a 9 to 5. How do you strike that balance?
I think it's a process of evolution. I think to find the happy medium I think you initiate something, and like you said, you put some resources in place, and then you get a feel for how things work. I mean, an example would be, like, say, this radio station. Even we started, alhamdulillah, the brothers and sisters are all volunteers, you know, giving their time to work for the deen, to get the message across. But inshallah, we hope that when we have the full-time community radio station, we will have to have some people who are paid people in the right to do the right job, basically, because to just expect that from volunteers is not always possible. So I think I agree with what both of the brothers have
That's
said.
a very good example, actually, and that's something that I've been involved in. So I've seen how the volunteers have basically contributed and, you know, exerted themselves to basically running, making sure things work. You know, we started off in 2014, and we were just on. You could just listen to us through your an app on your phone, just the audio. Now we've got promotional videos that are being made for every show. We've got a whole production set up behind the scenes, so it's basically become a cross between TV and radio, and now moving into FM. So I mean that's quite a good example. Ash, you want to say something?
I mean, what I'll say is one of the things that we should, as a Muslim community, do more of is look. Minhaj al-Quran has got a radio FM. You know, as Muslim communities, we should get behind Minhaj al-Quran. Right, we shouldn't be setting up a rival radio station and saying, look, we're going to do one better than you because you've done and you've done, just like we've had with the television stations. We should be coming together as Muslims and saying, listen, these guys have got the experience, they've got the license, right, they need the support. Okay, let's get behind them because they're going to represent us. And then what you need to do as an organization is say, look, the following communities are all Muslims, let's be representative of those Muslim communities. You know, so here's your £100, I'm going to give you £100.
Alhamdulillah.
All right, okay.
But
what I'm saying,
don't think you're leaving here with £100. Ash is trying to fool myself with £100, man. A lot more expect from you, bro.
but what I'm saying also is it's really important for Muslim organisations to have what I call a vision document. And I'll give you an example. In 2009, we wrote a vision document for Al Medina. Okay, and it was aiming that by 2015 we'll get to a certain stage. Because we had a vision document, we were there in 2011. All right, we knew where we wanted to go. Okay, and I've just finished writing a vision document, and I've called it Vision 2050. All right, and I've looked to 2050 instead of 5-10. I've looked to 20-30 years ahead because it was too easy. We had a vision document to go to, and we got there. All right, so what we need to do is we need to set routes for ourselves. We need to ask ourselves, where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? Okay, and have a goal to reach. Okay, because if you aimlessly wander on a day-to-day basis, you're never going to progress.
You know, it's very interesting what you just said there, because about backing each other and complementing each other's work rather than basically blocking it out. And even if you are going to replicate another institution's works, it's there not as a rivalry, but there because it's serving a different audience or a different, geographical area or whatever. But I mean, an example of that, something which I personally experienced was we, through this radio station, this is exactly what we wanted to do. We wanted to reach out to everyone and anyone that is doing positive work within the community. And we had a show here, and this was basically this vision of integrating and working coherently with other Islamic institutions. This was put forward to the entire the entire host team, and said, guys, when you do your shows, just bear that in mind. We used to have a show called here Minhaj Has Got Talent, where the mosques, basically the kids from the mosque, they come here, they perform nasheed or the Quran, or they do talks or whatever. This year the sister, what she done was, the one who's hosting the show, she said Muslims have got talent, and she's broadened it up. In fact, I think the mosques have got talent. So she asked me to go to other mosques which we know that theologically we've got differences on. For example, the Mawlid, do you celebrate it, do you not celebrate it, or other issues. Regardless of that, we went to these places and we said, regardless of your theological differences, we know the theological differences exist, but at this time, when you're 2% of the entire population, and you're going to basically fight or quarrel over theological differences, then that's going to be damaging for the ummah as a whole, and we need to basically come together and work together. So alhamdulillah, we have got other mosques and other communities which are not just Minhajul Quran or people of the same theological mindset, but regardless, because at the end of the day, they're reciting from the same Quran, they're worshipping the same Allah, with the commonalities are overwhelmingly more than the differences, and it's those commonalities that we should be working on.
But if you look at the other communities, Ismail, they do far more of this than we do. All right, and look, this morning, before we came on air, you and I were talking about a business that we've set up for young kids, Kid Bizzo. Okay, this morning I was with a colleague of mine in the Maulavi Rumi Mosque, the Turkish mosque in Edmonton, because we've come up with a learning tool for children, not just Muslim children, all children, but we see the benefit of that tool for Muslim children for the future, right? It's about teaching them situational awareness. It's about teaching them how to deal with things before they happen. It's about giving them a business mindset. It's about broadening their mindset to say that rather than go through an education and then end up being just a worker, you can actually be the boss. All right, so rather than aim for the end of the road, let's aim for the moon. All right, and if you teach children that at the age of 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10, I promise you they're going to have a different outlook to life. Yeah, and and this is the sort of thing that we should be sharing with the rest of the Muslim communities and saying, listen, there's benefit to this for your children. You won't see the benefit today and tomorrow, but I promise you'll see it in 5 years or in 10 years time. Why if you have a good idea do you keep it to yourself? Is there not sadaqah to share it with
Look at that. We're talking about business for kids coming from within the setup of a masjid, and the Prophet ﷺ, he himself was a businessman. So guys,
I think this is really important, because I think one of the failings, if you like, or something that we haven't really focused enough about is really how we connect with one another, and how not to be in your own kind of silos, doing your own things and not sharing good practice. And there's so many very, very good projects that are being done by different institutions, different masajids and so on. But we haven't really, we're not in a what's the word? We haven't started sharing those, or sharing those good practice.
And
and
one of the problems,
building on those.
And one of the problems I think we've done is that Islam has no borders. It shouldn't have borders. There's no nationalism in Islam. There is no Pakistani Muslim. There is no Bengali Muslim. There is no Somali Muslim. We're Muslims, alhamdulillah. But one of the things that we've fallen into the trap of, and sometimes you can understand it, but we've fallen into the trap of is that is a Bengali mosque, or that is a Pakistani mosque, or that is a Somali mosque. Right? We need to be working to the future to say that is a mosque where Muslims go.
Alhamdulillah, right? You know what? That is, I'm seeing that in this generation, it is beginning to diminish, and it's not as prominent as it was, say, some years ago.
It was mostly a generational thing, wasn't it? I mean, I think it was a language issue and generation issue, because people knew one another, and therefore they from their own community. But with passing of time and young generation and common language of English with most people now, I think we're seeing most of the masajids are having communities of different background and so on coming together. And we need to have more of that. But the stereotype shouldn't be there. You're right.
It shouldn't be. I mean, we've got to be honest. We've got a Yemeni imam, a Somali imam, a Pakistani imam, and 2 British imams who speak the language of the kids. And the only reason I say that is because our community is reflective of that. So we have to represent all of the communities, not just my particular Pakistani community, because I'm also responsible for the Somali brother or the Bengali brother who comes, who has as much right over that masjid as anybody else.
It's and also to do with what comes out from the masjid itself, because I go to a very quite a few local masajid where you will see every announcement in the local language,
Yeah.
every nasiha in the local language.
Yeah.
And, not being conscious of the fact that there are people here
Other
not
people.
understanding, or younger generation who are not actually getting the message.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that all the time, then somebody will not feel inclined to come back to the same place. You really
Well,
need
I've
to-
actually got. Go on,
I was just gonna say, I
sorry.
think that kind of, I think you're right, and alhamdulillah, I think most people who are, and I think we are sincere with the deen, we need to get out this tunnel vision approach, where we need to come together and think for the betterment of the ummah and for the community, which I think is totally the right way. I think you're right, in the past there may have been an issue due to language where people find it easier to communicate with people of the same language, but alhamdulillah, people who have been brought up here, languages is not as much of an issue. So I think that togetherness is coming, but I think we need to maybe speeden it up a little bit, and inshallah benefit from learnings. I mean, if you, like Brother Shwak mentioned, I think other organizations, whether it be outside, do learn from one another, but I think that has been a little bit lacking in our community or in our mosques, because like you said, if there's something which is good, why do you need to reinvent the wheel? Why not copy and benefit the local people that come there, or center users, or the local community? And inshallah, I think that way, like you mentioned, with a vision document, or whatever, we can progress, alhamdulillah, a lot faster, I think, which we need to address some of the issues for our community and people that attend.
You know, there's been is one of your phones vibrating? Sorry.
Yeah, I think so.
If just leave it off the table so it doesn't vibrate on the table. What I was going to say is basically, there's one issue which we can't leave undiscussed. Just before I move on to that one is this issue with the language, which was mentioned. I've actually got a show on Friday night, which is my debate night with me and another presenter, Mubin. We're actually discussing the role of the British Imam, and we're discussing why are we still walking into mosques and listening to announcements in Bengali, in Gujarati, in Urdu, whereas even the Bengali and the Gujarati and the Urdu community, they can understand English. So why is it not in English now? And I'm going to have Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad from the Cambridge University, a lecturer at the Cambridge University. He's going to be on the show. Also, a lecturer from University of Leeds will be on the show as well. So we'll be discussing that subject more thoroughly. But moving on to an issue which persists within the Islamic community, within the Muslim community, the issue of terrorism. Now, what it is we know that terrorism is basically, there's, I would say, the overwhelming majority of the Muslim community has absolutely no association or no acknowledgement of what goes on. But what it is because of media sensationalism, because of the Islamophobia industry, it only takes one. It only takes one, and it sets us back. 6 months, and we feel basically again marginalized by the community. Young sisters have their scarves pulled off. It instigates violence. There's so much that happens. One incident, and we're only marking a year since the Manchester attacks last year, almost a year ago. What about the mosques? What should they be doing? And should they be doing anything to sort of like identify any kind of extremist behavior within children, within people that attend the masjid? And what should they be doing? How should they be countering that? Because it is the far right. Okay, we know why the far right do it. They just want basically Muslims to just disappear off the planet. Yeah, so I'm not talking about them, but there is a lot of legitimate criticism that mosques are not doing enough. That's a question I open to you. Are they doing enough? What should they be doing? Should they even be doing anything? Is it a big enough problem that mosques should be getting involved with this? What do you guys got to say about that?
Look, if one person who gets killed because of a Muslim who claims he was doing it in his faith, that's one person too many. All right. Look, in America last year, 10,000 people died through the use of firearms. Okay, that was a massive amount compared to who dies as a result of terrorism. All right. But the problem you have, Ish, in my opinion, is that I think mosques have a rough deal on this one. All right, because if you look at all of the statistics, if you look at what the makeup of an extremist who goes on to perpetrate a crime in the name of his faith is, very rarely do they do any of their radicalization and work within a mosque? All right, these are individuals, right, who are radicalized and who radicalize by taking people away from their communities, taking people away from their comfort zones and isolating them, right, in tiny little rooms and places where other people don't go. All right, so I think mosques have a rough deal here. All right, of course mosques should be addressing the issue. Of course mosques should be alert to the issue. Of course we should know what the signs and signals are, and we should be doing as much as we possibly can. Okay, but if the public is honestly saying to us, listen, there's a radical who's come into your mosque and you should have picked him up straight away. Well, you know what? Describe to me what he looks like. All right, because I was a police officer for 30 years, all right, and no police officer out there can describe to you, right, what an extremist looks like, all right. So you point him out to me, and I'll deal with it, all right. But the last point I'll say before I let my colleagues is that we also seem to be in the head in the hand scenario, all right. It's that this problem doesn't exist. It does exist, all right, and these people may be misguided, all right, but it does exist, and we have to deal with it. Prevent, which is the government's response to this, obviously has a toxic name to its brand, all right? But the question I'll say to you is this. I don't particularly agree with everything Prevent does. I don't agree with the way it's done it. But it is the only thing out there at this moment in time that is working towards some form of countering this culture. What has been the Muslim community's response over the last 15 or 16 years whilst this is going on? What is our coordinated, structured response to de-radicalization? We haven't got one. Because we've stuck our head in the sand and said this isn't our problem. It is our problem. It's about time that we created one. It's about time that we put one together. And once you start addressing the issue, accepting it's there, that's when you can start making progress. But if we keep saying it doesn't affect us, it's not part of us, it's going to get worse.
How would you say? I think it's a mindset change as well. You got people on two ends of the spectrum, like the brother mentioned. I think either you got people who just don't even acknowledge it as a problem, or people who start being defensive because of it. So I think where the answer is somewhere in between, where I think it starts a lot earlier. I mean, generally people who have become extremist in their thinking, on their ideology, by the time they've got to that stage, it's a battle that we've lost, I think. I think that training and education, or even the mosques or from home, has got to start a lot earlier on, right from the beginning when a child is at an early stage. Because when a person becomes a terrorist or an extremist, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a thought process which starts a lot earlier on, where he starts thinking, I'm the only one that's right, everybody else is wrong, I can only do the right things and I'm correct always. And I think that kind of narrow-mindedness in approach or tunnel vision, it starts towards that path of going towards
extremism. And they often
extremism.
become takfiri, like, oh, these people are kafir or whatever, because it's that tunnel vision, like you mentioned, isn't it? That you know, that narrow-mindedness, that only I'm right. But go on, carry on.
Yeah. So I think, like you said, it's a very difficult one for Muslims to handle. But I think basically you've got to engage with the issue. I mean, I think you've got to work on both ends of the spectrum. One is educate the Muslims on what true Islam says, because Islam is not about terrorism. Islam is far, far, far away from that. So we need to, I think, educate our young people and even the children from an early age that what the true message of the deen is, what the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is, how we attracted people towards the deen with love and with compassion. So I think that's one side of it. And the other side of it, I mean, I'll give you an example. I remember when I was at university and just started working, I remember I would see people, they would say, you're right, but you know that chap I mentioned, he had a big beard, and you know, if there was a woman in the room, he would go out of the room, he wouldn't sit there, and they'd laugh about it and, you know, talk about Muslims. And I'd say, well, I'm a Muslim, but they say, yeah, but you're all right. I say, why is that? No, I mean, you know, there's no real answer for it. But I think even living in a Western society here, I think all Muslims have a responsibility to show, you know, themselves as good role models for people around them. So if we can, inshallah, show a positive image of Islam, a positive image of Muslims, do good things for the community, for the society, inshallah, I think people can relate to that. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight, but I think it's a thought process.
Cool, brother.
I mean, it's clear that terrorism has no place in Islam.
Absolutely.
And Quran makes it very, very clear. You know, taking one innocent life is as if you're taking the life of the whole humanity.
Yeah.
So it has absolutely no place in Islam. But I think there's a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of hype about all of these things, and a lot of accusations of masajids in particular. And
Yeah.
I agree with Ashfaq that masajids are probably the last of the places where anybody gets really radicalized.
Yeah.
And I think what the mosque really need to do is continue to do what it does, and that is to, as the brother here says, we have to teach our young people, particularly young people, Islam. What Islam is.
Yeah.
What is it? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he has said, stay away from extremism, right? From follow a moderate path, right? Yakumul ghulu. So you don't go near to anything that is extreme, whichever end of the spectrum that happens to be. So if you understand who you are, if you understand the deen, then you will know that extremism and terrorism and all of that has nothing to do with you being a Muslim and following the religion of Islam. But then you have the media here,
Absolutely.
and then you have those far right people who are blaming you for things that cannot be blamed. You can be blamed for. I mean, I'll give you an example. For example, one of the personalities that is used very much by this industry is Anwar al-Awlaki. Right, Anwar al-Awlaki actually came to East London Mosque many years ago, many years ago, and he did a talk. That is quoted again and again as this extremist guy. He came and he radicalized people in this masjid. If you go back and you listen to that talk, he was probably talking about one of the Sahabas, and then the good example that Sahaba gave. So when you have these kind of maligned stories like that, then it becomes problematic.
Yeah.
Look at how people get radicalized.
Yeah.
Not just Muslims but other people. We had the shootings, and again, you mentioned the shootings in America. We had the shooting in Texas the other day. 17-year-old kid, whatever motivated him to take lives of his fellow students. And that's happening on a kind of regular basis in America. That guy who decided last Ramadan to come and mow down the Muslims in Finsbury Park, he was radicalized by seeing one of the television documentaries where the Muslims were accused for doing some criminality, right? So, when young people, and you see what's happening in Palestine recently,
absolutely,
you see those people. I've seen some videos where these soldiers are actually shooting people, and then really enjoying the fact that they've actually managed to shoot somebody when they probably didn't need to shoot that person. And you have so many of those kind of deaths, and so this kind of injustices that people actually see, young people see, that these things are happening across the globe, and nobody's actually bothered about those lives, as if those lives don't make any, they have a lesser value, or shedding that blood.
And that's visual. In our generation, we didn't have the social media, we didn't have the internet.
It's
visual.
Isn't
You
it?
can see it today while it's
that,
happening.
But
right.
I want to just ask you.
So let me just finish that
go
point.
on,
It is really important that Muslim community don't just get into that hype and say you're not doing enough to de-radicalize your youth and so on and so forth. What are you doing about the extremism? It's also important to actually look at the other side of the story and see whether there is justice and injustice going on that is being properly addressed or not. Our young people, we do have a responsibility. We cannot shrug our responsibility and we cannot not address this issue. We do. And we do need to talk to them about that. And there are right ways of dealing with something. There are wrong ways of dealing with those things. So it's important that we actually deal with it in the right way, but not just take the blame for it. And how many people actually come, every time something like this happens from a Muslim community, and I'm not saying this is acceptable, it isn't by any means. But then the whole Muslim community is put on the spotlight. Who's condemning this? What are you doing about this, that, and the other? When you have a Christian guy do the same thing, who comes out and condemns any
I actually posed this question the other day because what happened, as Biba Rahman has said, is Palestine a couple of days ago. For me, that's a war crime. Okay, but if you've created an atmosphere where youngsters cannot even discuss the issue of Palestine without being accused of being anti-Zionist and what have you, right? Then you're suppressing even this freedom of speech.
Of course.
Okay, and where is that going to go to? All that's going to do is harbour further injustices. You look at the media and it comes out. A Muslim goes and does something and he's a terrorist, but if a non-Muslim goes and does it, he's usually suffering from Asperger's syndrome. Okay, all right, and he can be his extradition can be stopped, right, because he was suffering Asperger's syndrome. But the Muslim terrorist is going to go regardless of what have you. So these injustices are not not seen by our youngsters and out there, who then, if they're in a vulnerable position, right? Along comes this charismatic radicalizer, okay, who gives purpose and meaning and sense, and he says, look, your community is not talking for you, your mosques can't represent you, your imams can't speak your language, right? Suddenly that becomes attractive, all right, and that's what we have to do. We mustn't shy away from actually challenging the issues where they are, but we must also close down the doors to the radicalizers, which they're going through at the moment because of our failings.
You know what? I mean, it's quite interesting what you said about this chap that was the speaker. What was his name?
Anwar Awlaki.
Anwar Awlaki. Yeah, I've heard this name before because it was actually a radio station. Because I'm involved in radio. There's a radio station up north which played his talks and were closed down by Ofcom. They basically closed down the whole radio station. I think they gave him a few warnings or whatever, but they continued to do it. I don't know what this is. But I mean, and you're saying that this happened obviously a number of years ago, where he was talking about something totally insignificant or irrelevant.
This was a long time before he returned to Yemen, and he changed his mind.
He's changed his mind.
He had the different views about things thereafter. But prior to that, he was in America and he was touring, the English-speaking world quite frequently. He was delivering talks on the Seerah and on the lives of the Prophet and the Sahabas and so on. So there's nothing radical about any of those kind of talks.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's only afterwards when he changed his views, and then he gave some fatwa, I think, also that
it's permissible or whatever.
That's right.
So that's what I want to talk about. It's about basically, obviously, you don't know who's going to change their way. But isn't it a responsibility of the masajid to basically choose and refuse who speaks on their platform, bearing in mind this narrow minded, because originally what happens is terrorism doesn't begin, like you said, it's basically, it starts from narrow mindedness, it starts from extreme way of thinking, it starts from like saying this is haram and this is haram and this is haram and this is haram and this is bid'ah and this is shirk, and then it comes to this is the only model of Islam that you have to follow, anything outside of this is impermissible. When you have that kind of thinking and then you're allowing imams that come, then they're already extreme, an extremist is more likely to become maybe not a terrorist, but an endorser of terrorists or a supporter of terrorists. Because remember, the imams don't actually go out and fight. The Khawarij, they were the Khawarij, the ones who battled, were on the battlefield, but then there were those that were giving them that backing, that support from the mosques, giving them that moral support, giving them that encouragement, giving them that Islamic sort of like context.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Where is the responsibility of the mosques of ensuring those imams are not given that platform?
Well, I think that's a clear responsibility. You don't give them that platform, and if you're an organisation that is giving them that platform, then expect the attention that you're going to get. But what I'm saying is, look, one of the things that we've done at Al Medina is that 5 years ago, we took a bold step and we started a 7-year alim course. All right, and we've got 42 students who are British born, British educated, and are professional British workers. All right, we've got doctors, we've got police officers, we've got pharmacists. They, for the last 5 years, have been on an advanced course. Okay, they've got 2 years left to do. Now, these people live in our community. They are entrenched in our community. Every night they go and live back in our community. All right, in 2 years' time, all right, I'm going to unleash them onto East London. Okay, and I will have 40 professionally qualified and religiously, theologically advanced trained individuals in the community able to counter the narrative. Not just able to counter the narrative, but able to help extendedly away from the masjid with projects and everything. All right, but that takes, and I don't say it was my foresight, but what I'm saying is it takes foresight. You have to look ahead and see how you can help your community. The question I asked the Muslim community again, right, is 15 or 16 years after the first major terrorist atrocity happened, what is the Muslim community's coordinated response? And unfortunately, I don't think we have one. Right, and I think we need to develop one. It's not too hard to do. We have the experience, we have the ability. And until the mainstream Muslim community grabs hold of this and develops it and moves it forward, others will come and do it to us. And the likes of Quilliam, all right, the likes of these organizations who don't have credibility at the grassroots level, but do have the ear of the government. All right. So the fault here lies with the grassroots organizations. We need to come together. We need to work together. We need to grab the experience we have. And there's lots of experience and skill out there. And we need to develop our own coping strategies and our own preventative strategies.
I understand an initiative has been taken by the Muslim Council of Britain.
Yeah, it's very limited.
Dal Babu's been involved with that, I think. But it's something.
It's a start. Alhamdulillah, it's a start. And what we should be doing is everybody should be getting behind on top of it and saying, let's improve it here, let's add here, let's take this away, all right, because it's for the benefit of our children.
Because I think the problem with the prevent strategy and particularly the channel program has been that there's been so many mishaps. And you know, it's incredible ones. You know, your child can't say a single thing, you know, innocently without being referred as if there's been some radicalization going on at home or whatever.
And that you know, that comes from the very basic premise that is taught by the likes of Quilliam that every Muslim is on this escalator of extremism. Nonsense.
Which is
it's
nonsense.
like, you know, it's
Absolutely.
like every Muslim has an extremist bone in his body from the day that he's born. But what I'm saying here is that we failed because the likes of Quilliam have been able to put that narrative into the minds of the government. Right, and unfortunately it's taken speed. So what I'm saying is that we need to grab that back. Right, we need to grab that back and say, no, that's not us, this is who we are. And the only way we do that is by leading the agenda, not having the agenda read to us.
But I'm afraid the government seems to have an ear for the likes of the Quilliam Foundation as opposed to the grassroots organizations.
Yeah.
And if they continue to marginalize the mainstream Muslim community like that, then that's what's going to be exactly.
They'll lose because you know what happens is that you know, and sometimes I wonder these you know, Oxford educated politicians who are so clever, right, are listening to individuals who, you know,
no representation,
who at one point wanted to put on a suicide vest and blow themselves up.
They were from one extreme to another.
And
that's
now
what
today
exactly
they want to tell me how to live my life.
Exactly.
Okay, well I object to that. Do you see what I mean?
You know what?
Can I just respond to your question about the speakers? I mean, absolutely. I think mosque managements and those people who are running or leading the mosque must have you know, those policies in place, and I think there must be a speakers policy. We vet all of the speakers that we take. It's our responsibility to ensure that we are not adding to the problem.
Absolutely.
And the mosque is supposed to be there for solving the problem. And how do we ensure that our young people are getting the authentic message of Islam that is going to build their character, not to make them extreme or one way or another? So it's absolutely right. I mean, there is also, I mean, it's a problematic area because sometimes you're being told who is an extremist speaker, and sometimes you know yourself what is, you know, what are the right things to say and so on. So it's quite a balancing act. But it's absolutely right that we don't allow people who feel hatred amongst people any platform within our institutions.
Well, just add to that, I think, mashallah, that's a very good point. I think in terms of this approach, it's not an easy problem to deal with, and I think, like you said, I think it's got to be a holistic approach to it. So, and that means that parents at home have to take a interest. They have to take an interest in their children's activities, education, behaviour. Similarly, at the mosque, similarly the community. Now, what I think in terms of as mosques, what your question was, related to us is what can the mosques do? What I think is that, I don't think, I think we're all in agreement, and I think everyone would generally expect that the mosques vet people, that they're allowed to use their platform to deliver a message. Secondly, what would add to that is, like the brother mentioned, alhamdulillah, a really good point where, they've got 48 young people who, inshallah, will be unleashed onto the community. I think we can broaden that work if we start right from an earlier stage, because alhamdulillah, nearly every mosque, what mosques generally were, where parents used to send the children, where go and learn the Quran and to recite it, read it, and that was it, alhamdulillah. That's good, but that's a fantastic opportunity for many mosques as well, because if we can impart this kind of learning onto them, where we engage with those young people. We can give them like the PEP education or other forms of education, where we kind of give them a broader mind, give them the true message of Islam, and keep them away from these kind of people. These people will then, alhamdulillah, become messengers within the community. And once those disciplines are entrenched in them at an early age, I think inshallah by 11 or 12, once that's been instilled into them from the age of 5 to 10 or 11, inshallah they will never go off track.
Alhamdulillah. And PEP, you mentioned PEP. I mean, for the listeners out there that may not know what PEP is the Peace Education Program, which is a series of books. It's a curriculum that was compiled by Dr. Tahir al-Qadri. And it deals with like every single aspect that could be possibly taken out of context. It basically puts that back into context. So you've got Muhammad the peacemaker, how the Prophet ﷺ, he went out of his way to basically bring communities together. And this is a program that has basically been delivered throughout the country. There's many workshops and seminars, and there's a children's curriculum, there's a curriculum for imams, there's a curriculum for government agencies that tells you the right message of Islam, that balanced approach where sticks true to its Islamic values, but at the same time it is giving that message of Islam, giving that right message of Islam, which is that the Prophet ﷺ came here to unite people. He was rahmatul lil alameen. He was a mercy for not just Muslims or mankind, but the alameen. The same word is used, Rabbul Alameen, for everything in creation. The Prophet ﷺ is a mercy for, and it is that Islam of mercy. Guys, we're coming to a close, and I'm gonna basically give just a few minutes each for you guys to just talk about where do we go from here now, where we are in terms of the mosques. We've developed them to a level where they are delivering multiple activities, and it's not just a place of your 5 daily prayers. We've established that it's not just a place for your Jummah or you're teaching the Quran, but I mean, you mentioned your vision 2050. I want you to elaborate on that, and then we can say, where are we going together? Where are we going, and how can we get there together? That's what I want to basically finish up
Ish,
on.
We hit 700 youngsters a week on our sports program, okay? And last year we won a national sports program for connecting communities through sport, okay? We are a small, voluntary masjid in the East End of London, in Barking, right? It's the poorest borough in London, okay? On the right-hand side, as you come out of the masjid, you got the BNP, all right? Yeah. And on the left-hand side, you got Al-Muhajirun, all right? We live in what should be a cesspit, okay? But alhamdulillah, because we've made the effort to go out there and links with our communities, we live in a really nice place, all right? We're hitting 700 children a week who are coming to our sports program, and through our sports program, we're picking up issues that we then mentor. All right, we then use them in our projects. We bring them on as volunteers. Okay, and I've got people now there who started off as drug dealers, who are now actively working with other members of the community and doing good. We've given them a stake in their society, all right? If you make them feel important, if they give them something to be a part of, they will reward you immensely, all right? So this is a message that we mosques, if a small mosque in the East End of London can do that, every mosque can do that. All we've got to do is we've got to look at the good practice which is taking place out there. We've got to go out and reach for it, and at the same time, the organisations that are doing have to share it. Okay, not grab hold of it and say, look at how good work I'm doing, I don't want to give it to anybody else. Yeah. You have to share it. Look at it as a form of sadaqah. Yeah. All right? There's no point in creating something good and then just keeping it to yourself. Spread it to the rest of humanity. All right? So I think, just from a mindset perspective, from a manager's perspective, from a community leader's perspective, we have to look at others, and we have to look at others with a view to helping them.
Brother, spreading it to spreading this good work that's being done in our institutions, in the institutions that you guys represent, and taking it out and bringing other smaller institutions which may not be as progressive, getting them on board and helping each other. What have you got to say on that?
I think first of all, alhamdulillah for masajids. It's a wonderful thing that our predecessors have done, and it's given us the opportunity that whenever we go somewhere, we think, where am I going to pray?
Yeah.
Is there a masjid nearby
you'll find
that I
one.
can go to? And you'll find one, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
And this is a wonderful thing that's happened. A lot of masajids are still evolving, and they don't have the capacity.
Yeah.
And I think they want to do things, but maybe they don't have the facilities to do a lot of these things. So again, they need to be supported to do that. And all of the things that brothers have mentioned about involvement of women and welcoming to children and facilitating non-Muslims and so on, all of those things are important. And I think masjids across the country need to be institutions in their communities as a force of good.
Yes.
People should recognize, everybody who's around a mosque should recognize that these people are really well wishers for the whole of the community. Community is suffering, whether it's through drugs or whether it's through homelessness or poverty or whatever. The mosque has something to say about that. The mosque cares. It will do whatever it can to help the community in that way. So that's quite important, that we become known for the good things that we want to do and the good things that we do, and we work in cooperation with other people, not in isolation, not behind the wall. Nobody knows what these people do there. Do they radicalize? Do they do whatever? No. We want to be exposed. We want to go out there and we want to reach out to people as well, and that's really important. I think it's really important that the hard to reach and those people who are not reachable within our community, that we really do something about. And I think some of the good discussion that's happened here, some of the good projects that I'm hearing here are really, that they're a beacon for others to follow. And I hope that inshallah, we can follow some of these things up and share those kind of projects. We also have to recognize that we are a very small minority within a very big majority. And a lot of time, a lot of community, out of misconceptions or whatever, are quite hostile towards us. But there is also a big proportion who are very, tolerant and acceptable of diversity. And we need to learn how to work with both of those. So I think it's important that, our institutions can also reach out to the non-Muslim community, work for common good on projects that is good for the whole of the community, for our own youth. So when we're looking after our youth, we're also looking after the youth of the society as well, and that's very important for that to happen, inshallah.
Inshallah.
I think I would just say on that front is that alhamdulillah, like the brother mentioned, is that what we need to do is reach out to other people who come to the mosque. They come for their salahs or whatever reason, alhamdulillah, already connected with the mosque. That is fine, alhamdulillah, subhanallah. But the people, there's many people that are not connected with the mosque or with the deen. Those are the people that we need to target. We need to get on board. We need to reach out to them. I mean, like alhamdulillah, with the radio project, mashallah, I think you guys are doing a wonderful project. There's many people that don't come into the mosque. It's a mechanism to reach out to them. I think that's the first thing, that the mosque needs to become a hub for the community and for Muslims that attend and that don't attend there on a regular basis as well. One thing. Then secondly,
the perception of the mosque. It's about changing the perception.
Yeah.
Mosque is not.
It's a welcoming people. I mean, a small example.
Yeah.
Look, when a child's 3 or 4 years old, he goes to nursery. Yeah. You go, the teacher will have toys there, will play with the child, will make him feel welcome, although he's crying for his mum. But then afterwards, next day, after a few days, he wants to come back because there's something interesting there for him. How in the past...
You're not saying we should have toys in the masjid now,
why not?
bro?
Why not? I would say, why not? I mean, whereas in the past...
We've already got them.
Well, in the past, for example, mosques will come and sit on the floor, read Quran, get beats. Alhamdulillah, we've moved to an extent away from that, but we need to move further away from that. Once that's done, we engage the local community. Then inshallah, if we want to make change on a mass scale, I think a lot of the mosques and organizations need to come together and work for the community and work for the betterment and share good practice, like the brothers have mentioned. Alhamdulillah, we have got expertise and experiences in many different areas. Alhamdulillah, the elders have done a fantastic job. And now
big shout out to the elders.
It's time for the next generation to come get involved with your local mosque. Come and support it. because obviously if you've only got less people, the rest of the resources, there's not as much you can do. But if inshallah, if more people get involved, there's a lot more you can do. I think that's the way forward, inshallah.
Can I just say one last thing for me? Look, one of the things I think that we do as human beings is that for a large part of our lives, it's me. Yeah, and what we should be teaching our children from a very, very early age is that life is about we. Yeah, and that we is community. All right, and the community is what life should be about. Right, and if you can be about we rather than me, right, not only are you fighting your own nafs, right, but you're actually behaving like a Muslim should be.
Muhammad Ali's poem, isn't it? Me, we. That's his shortest poem, you know that. But yeah, I think that that's exactly what it's about. It is about basically working coherently and working together. There's only just a few minutes left, and I thought I'd mention this as well. But the media plays a massive role, and as a mosque, we educate ourselves about, you know, the Quran and the Hadith and the fiqh and the seerah, etc., etc., etc. We know that during the life of the Prophet ﷺ, he used whatever the latest technological advancement was to basically propagate his message. That time it was the sealing with the wax. That was what the non-Muslims used to do, but he didn't say no, that's what the kuffar do, I'm not going to do that. He adopted many practices because they were not out of the ambit of the Sharia, and he sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the Sharia. He was whatever, you know. For others, we can either do things according to Sharia or against the Sharia, but the Prophet ﷺ, whatever he does, it becomes Sharia. If he drinks water in a certain way, that becomes Sharia. If he smiles a certain way, that becomes Sharia. So for others, they have to follow the Sharia, but for him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he doesn't follow the Sharia follows him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we saw that the Prophet ﷺ, he used whatever the latest technological advancement was to basically propagate the message of Islam. Within the masajid, in a day of social media, should we be providing that platform where they come and learn social media skills, learn these skills to propagate the message of Islam? Should this also be part of a mosque, and how far should we go in providing that support? Brother Habibur Rahman, you just got a few minutes, but go on, enlighten us.
I mean, we're already suffering from this, and unfortunately in a negative way, because social media is with every child at the moment. You know, what we know, our children know a great deal more, and they're with it, you know, all of the time. So they're exposed to this environment, to the environment of the media, and just there all of the time. And these are just tools, and tools can be used in a good way or it can be in a bad way. If we don't educate our children, if we don't use them, you know, ensure that they use it in the right way, they're likely to fall into the wrong way.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely necessary that, you know, we warn them of the dangers, but we also help them to learn how to use it in a good way. And what better way to do it than to, you know, the Quran says, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah." So, you know, use it in the best possible way. Use the media to reach out and do good rather than the bad.
Should mosques be putting these programs in place, or actually, you know, if not running within the mosque, but basically channeling this talent that's coming into the masjid, that is internet savvy, that is involved in social media, to basically
we're working with some Muslim businessmen who are situated in the community centre at the mosque. They rent the space from us. They run their businesses from there. They are completely internet savvy. They have the latest understanding of all these social media businesses, Facebook and everything. We're using them, we're working with them to reach out to youngsters in our community, right, to help them set up their businesses, help them to promote their businesses using Facebook, Amazon, all of these tools, and make a living for themselves. And make themselves self-sufficient rather than relying on other people.
So you're already doing that.
Already doing two things there. One, you're reaching out to your local community and helping them to upskill themselves, and secondly, you're using the tools of today. right? And like Habib Rahman said, you have to use that, you know, because it's out there, it's amongst the youngsters. Let's help them to use it in a positive way rather than in the negative.
But there are a lot of very experienced and expert people out there in the community who are not already doing this, and you can be attracting them to come and get engaged and so on, and they can be benefiting the community.
Yeah, I think I mean, even if you look now, I mean, it was surprising the other day. I was going on the tube and I saw somebody pull up an app and pull out the Quran on it and started reciting it. I mean, that's already happening. And I think, like you said, either we've got a choice, either we can engage with it and try to work and make it a positive experience, or leave it. So I think we should be looking towards making it a positive experience, like we've set up here Minhaj Productions, who the idea behind it was that we saw a lot of youngsters were more interested in social media, and that was a platform and a way to engage them. And I think that's the way we need to go, because at the end of the day, if you see nowadays, everyone's on the phone, whether even the elder generation and the younger generation. So it's a tool, and I think
I'm gonna have to drop a Punjabi line here. Pakistan ਵਿੱਚ ਆਖਦੇ ਖੋਤੀਆਂ ਪਰ ਬੈਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਲੇਕਿਨ ਮੋਬਾਈਲ ਫੋਨ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਹੱਥ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈ. You know, where they're sitting on donkeys in Pakistan, but they got mobile phones. So you're in an age, bruv. I had to drop that one, but go on.
So I mean, like you said, we've got a position to take, and I think we should engage with it and use it for the betterment of the community. Use it to engage our youngsters, because like we know they are, I mean, it's surprising actually. I've got a son who's 11 years old, and the other day he said to me, "Daddy, Facebook is for elders. Instagram now." And I was like thinking, what? So I mean, and I think we need to, if we want to engage with that generation, I think we need to appreciate these platforms and take them on board, and inshallah, they said, use the expertise that is available outside to engage them, and inshallah get our positive message across, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah, thank you very much, guys, for coming in, first of all, and being sharing your experiences and your knowledge and your expertise. It's truly been educational, very educational for me, very inspirational for me, and I'm sure it has been for our listeners. And inshallah, I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us the ability to continue to do the good work that you guys are doing and following your footsteps, and continue to provide the wonderful services that you are. And I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He blesses us with the barakah of this Ramadan, and He enables us to gain taqwa, to gain qurb, to gain nearness, to gain the fear, and to gain the closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He enables us, Ya Allah, to gain the muhabba and the love and the respect and the dedication to following the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he guides us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless this ummah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alleviate all the problems that this ummah is facing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alleviate the suffering of our Palestinian brothers and sisters that were brutally butchered by the state terrorism that was inflicted upon innocent civilians. Ya Allah, bless the Muslims from around the world. Ya Allah, enable us to work together. Ya Allah, enable us to spread peace wherever we go. And Ya Allah, keep our masajid flourishing in the way that they have been. Ya Allah, we ask you to bless us with all the barakat of Ramadan. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Thank you very much, dear listeners, and inshallah, until next time, please remain tuned in. We've got, after this show, we've got the Al-Ihsan show by our Sheikh Sadiq Qureshi, who will be joining us in the studio. So make sure you stay tuned in for that. Until next time, give me permission. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.